My favorite sounding records are the ones that don't sound like they had to do a lot to make it sound the way it sounded. Like, usually when you hear a record and it sounds amazing, for me, it sounds sort of effortless and sort of like unlabored.
These are my favorite and least favorite metal albums from March, starting with Scalpture with Landkrieg. This album goes so hard right from the first scream and deluge of riffage of the appropriately titled Into Catastrophe. Gatecreeper fans rejoice at this lesser discussed German death metal band formed in 2009 who possess the same cavernous quality and generally punishing impact. Landkrieg is their fourth album and continues themes around war, this time specifically the 30-year war from 1618 to 1648. This really hit the spot in terms of just pure death metal. It's already been a crazy year again for the genre, and this earns a high spot for me. Next up is Sadist with Something to Pierce. Big fan of these Italians since discovering them with Hyena in 2015, and since then I have backtracked to discover that they have been just as impressive since 1993. Their progressive and at times experimental fusion of death and thrash metal is wholly their own, and they continue to keep me on the edge of my seat with this 10th record. Love when they bring those tribal sounding drums and an always varied approach to synth, not to mention some utterly jaw-dropping solos. Hear all three on Deception. Not my favorite release from the band, but always nice to hear them drop in for something outside of the box. Then there's Cryptosis with Celestial Death. Speaking of genre-straddling progressive acts, this Dutch band instantly became one of my new favorites with 2021's prog thrash banger Bionic Swarm, and I've been dying to hear more ever since. And seemingly not content to be pigeonholed out of the gate, Celestial Death finds them very actively pushing their boundaries even further while still serving up the heaviness and speed that I'm looking for. Singles like Faceless Matter and Static Horizon made it clear from the spooky synths and emphasis on blackened atmosphere that this record would be a different beast entirely. I was a little worried at first that it might get lost up its own ass along the way, but no, this is another banger from a band that you need to add to your follow list. Then we have Aversed with Erasure of Color. Expect a lot of great progressive death metal this month, starting with this Boston band formed in 2009 as Aversion, though this is only their second full-length release. Sarah Hartman takes over on vocals here and brings an excellent variety of screams, growls, and singing to the already impressive dynamics. Some pretty ripping solos here too, as well as exemplary drumming courtesy of Allegion's Jeff Saltzman. The songwriting could be a little bit more focused and finessed for the sake of flow, but this still managed to stand out again in a month full of great releases in this genre. Next up is Fange with Purulences. That's a difficult title to say. Anyways, album 8 from this French industrial sludge band that seemingly never sleeps given their relentless output. It's been such a ride for me going back to their 2016 debut Purge, and they continue to deliver on that trademark fusion of machine-like rhythms with sludgy vocals and compositions comparable to Godflesh and Author and Punisher. If you ask me, this band has had one of the most consistent discographies of the last decade, and in a time where finding good industrial is much more difficult than it used to be. Not to mention they have once more nailed the sound of the album in the cover art, provided directly as usual by guitarist, vocalist, and machinist Benjamin Moreau. Then we have Hypermass with Apparition Day. This Norwegian progressive melodeath band following up their debut LP with an equally strong EP. Lots of great grooving riffs here to get under your skin, and the songwriting takes you on a more than sufficient journey to carry the above average runtimes. The guitar work often reminds me of a killer mix between Lamb of God and Born of Osiris, which is a combination I never would have thought of but works just so well. 5 tracks over a consistently strong 27 minutes, looking forward to more in the future. Then we have Warbringer with Wrath and Ruin. The 7th album from this California thrash metal band, and one I saw quite a bit of hype for in the comments. And yeah, this is just that pure modern thrash goodness I live for when I'm in the mood for the unfiltered stuff.
Just hook it to my veins!
Pissed off, venomous vocals, raging guitars, and breakneck pace make this an absolute blast of a listen. As I've said in the past, I worry a bit when I see non-prog thrash bands pushing track lengths past 5 minutes, but these guys do a good job of maintaining momentum like a modified bulldozer with its brake lines cut. And with just 8 of them, you can really dig into each one for maximum effect. Hopefully this helps set the tone for a much stronger year for thrash than 2024 was. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, as always, be sure to hit the like button and comment your own favorites and least favorites below. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Also, Mad Mike just dropped his latest video on the transition of vocalists of Cannibal Corpse, and it is a great little mini documentary that you should check out. But next up we have Dessiderium with Keys to the Palace. Album 5 from this solo progressive death metal project out of California and released off of the always impressive Willowtip roster. Always crazy when largely one guy can be responsible for such epic atmospheres with layers upon layers of magical guitar, synth, and piano. Especially when considering the Dream Theater level runtimes, it's amazing that it all comes together so well. And stellar mixing from former aborted guitarist and impressive solo artist in his own right, Mendel. Highly recommended to fans of Wilderrun. Then we have Doomsday with Never Known Peace. More amazing thrash metal this month. This time it's the debut album from this Oakland, California group, and I think that the future is bright based on this one. More killer crossover energy with plenty of gang vocals, clearly inspired by everything from Exodus to Municipal Waste. Another tight one too that understands less is more at just 32 minutes, but every second squeezing out the goods. Can't wait to see what else these guys cook up in the coming years because the grasp they have on the genre already is incredible. Then we have Dawn of Ouroboros with Bioluminescence. I was absolutely blown away by this Oakland, California band's second album in 2023, so this jumped right to the top of my pile to check out when it hit my inbox last month. They continue to toy with this very unique tightrope walk of technical death metal a la bands like Fallujah with the warm post-black melodies of Death Heaven. Tony Thomas of Botanist songwriting and Chelsea Murphy's alternations of venomous snarls and sultry cleans are a match made in heaven. Listening to this band is like drifting through the clouds, sometimes bathed in a beautiful sunset, others braving a storm. I could see them on tour with Deftones just as much as Rivers of Nile. Then we have Trold with Skovens Rige. Probably butchered that album title, but this is the second one from this Denmark folk metal band, and as always, I am just so starved for more in this genre, while others baffle me in just how much they seem to hate fun. Who doesn't enjoy swinging flagons of ale to bagpipes, whistles, and infectiously swaying guitar riffs? How anyone could listen to this without least violently tapping their foot is completely beyond me. Highly recommended to fans of Fintroll, Svartsat, and Trollfest. I'm taking this one to the local fantasy mead bar for sure, and the rest of you can just suck it. Then we have Whitechapel with Hymns in Dissonance. Phil stated that they attempted to write their heaviest album to date with something that was shockingly menacing and brutal, and I think that they mostly succeeded in this task. After the last 2 albums, I didn't think we would ever get another album like this, but they proved that they still have the fire inside of them. Really strong album with no skips, lots of solid variety, and Phil really pulling no punches when it comes to what he's doing with the vocals. Check out my tier list to see where this landed in their discography overall, but suffice it to say, I am glad to have one of the original kings back at full force. Then we have Destruction with Birth of Malice.
It felt like a crime, setting the world ablaze.
4 thrash metal albums made this month's list, this being the 18th album from this legacy German band, and if you ask me, they have only been hitting harder than ever this decade. I already love 2022's Diabolical, and I'd also list this new one among the best in their discography. 51 minutes, and I'm banging my head pretty much the entire time. Killer riffs, infectious rhythms, and fun vocals make this an utter blast, and if you like solos, then you will get more than you bargained for. Another one where you can check out the tier list I did for these guys, but seriously, this is better than it has any right to be. Then there's This Gift is a Curse with Heir. I've been missing what I consider to be the peak of gnarly blackened sludge with the likes of Lord Mantis, Indian, and Cobalt. But this Swedish band is back to fill that filth void in a big way with their first album in 6 years and 4th overall. Truly chilling stuff, mixing eerie ambience, noise, raging ferocity, and of course slimy, putrid sludge, and plenty of standout vocal moments like that haunting chant of No Sun Nor Moon on the track of the same name. Between these guys and The Lion's Daughter, which I sadly just saw after I wrote this script, are seemingly having a breakup show, like they're done, so that's a huge bummer, but anyways, I think there's room to bring this genre to another high point, so bring them on. Then we have Cradle of Filth with the screaming of the Valkyries. This legacy act, around since the 90s, has been on a bit of a hot streak since Hammer of the Witches, delivering some of, again, what I would consider to be their best material. This 14th album continues the strong trend, though this time it feels like they're veering more overtly into the melodic, gothic, dark atmosphere of albums like Cruelty and the Beast. There are still some headbangers on here as well, though, like We Wish to Live Deliciously, Demigogery, and the triumphant Ex-Sanguine Dracula. I don't find myself loving it as much as the last 3, but then again, the previous album ended up being a bit of a grower for me, and either way, this still made the list. Then we have Spirit Box with Tsunami Sea. While I have really enjoyed all of this band's EPs as well as their work on the final I Wrestled a Bear Once album, I found myself pretty underwhelmed with their Eternal Blue full-length debut. Thankfully, this sophomore effort mostly steps up everything I love about their sound while trimming down some of the fat. Not to mention this thing is seriously pissed off with tracks like Black Rainbow and the absolute barn burner of Soft Spine, while still finding time for more drifty melodic moments like A Haven with Two Faces, Tsunami Sea, and Perfect Soul. It has the usual high points, but now with the deeper cuts like Keep Sweet coming out much closer in quality, making for what I find to be a much more consistent front-to-back listen, though there are still maybe 1 or 2 tracks I'm not as fond of. Another strong entry for metalcore this year. We'll have to see how it stacks up against everything else.
I am Poppy, and I am really happy to be here, nominated with Knocked Loose.
Then we have Arch Enemy with Blood Dynasty. The 12th album from this Swedish melodeath giant, and very much continuing to expand on the heavy metal influences of Deceivers. The riffs are as infectious and thrashy as ever, and Elisa manages to deliver both some of her most extreme harsh vocals and campiest 80s cleans to date. Lots of killer tracks here in Dream Stealer, Don't Look Down, Paper Tiger, and Liars and Thieves, even getting some Judas Priest vibes at times. I don't love it start to finish as much as Deceivers, but it's definitely a good time. Then there's Cult of Fire with The One Who Is Made of Smoke. Now, I'm not sure that this Czechia band will ever top their 2013 album Ascetic Meditation of Death in my book, but this fifth record, their first in 5 years, once more begs the rest of black metal to step up their game. Awash in Eastern instruments and themes, it's another stirring, meditative, ritualistic journey. Truly enchanting stuff, from the haunting chanting to the occasional implementation of sitar in union with the usual black metal tropes. I also love how heavy they get with doom. That touch of having the vocals growl in tandem with the guitar part comes right up to the line of being silly, but instead managed to just put a delighted smile on my face. Then we have Cabal with Everything Rots. Album 4 from this Danish deathcore band that seriously caught my attention with the dark and punishing Mark of Rot back in 2018. Feeling the nihilism of the debut while maybe taking some tips from the electronic elements of bands like Darko, especially on Snake Tongue. I didn't know that what I needed in my life was a deathcore rave, but bring on the glow sticks. Generally, though, this is highly aggressive and sticks mostly to the hallmarks of the early days of the genre as opposed to frequently glossier modern elements. Plenty of great guest spots on the album as well from members of Viscera, Distant, and much more. Underrated band. Then we have Deaf Heaven with Lonely People with Power. Now, I know that I may come off as a hater of this band sometimes, especially since I've never worshipped Sunbather, but I have enjoyed moments from them over the years, particularly New Bermuda, and I feel very happy saying that this latest album completely blew me away. This feels like the culmination of the lessons learned over the past few albums, with both the black metal elements sounding as sharp and icy as ever, as well as the shoegaze parts going toe-to-toe with the classics in the genre. Every song is damn near a 10 for me, no lulls, no filler, just a front-to-back epic of an album.
You're goddamn right.
Alright, before I get to my favorite pick of the month, we have some okay stuff and also some not-so-okay stuff, but starting with the okay, we have Spirit World with Hell Dorado.
There's nothing left, nothing left. In this world, just a pestilence. Sorrow and misery.
Album 3 from this unique fusion of crossover thrash with western styles and themes out of Las Vegas. Gimmicks aside though, there are just some fun headbangers on here like No Vacancy in Heaven, Waiting for the Reaper, and Western Stars and the Apocalypse, and frankly, I find myself enjoying those tracks way more. I'd like to see them find more effective ways to fuse the best elements both more seamlessly in the future instead of coming off as corny in many places. I felt like on this album, like some of the more westerny stuff just didn't do it for me this time around. I was pretty stoked for it, and yeah, no, it kind of let me down. We also have Crown Magnetar with Punishment. The latest from this punishing technical deathcore crew. I had some people upset with me ranking the previous LP pretty low that year, agreeing that it was supremely heavy but not finding much value beyond that, and unfortunately, I still stand by that with this release. Crushing stuff that made for a solid listen, but barely a note of it stuck with me afterwards. Like, honestly, as I'm talking about it now, I don't remember a damn note from this thing. Then we have Titan Blood with From the Visceral Abyss. This is probably going to be my piss grave of the month in that everyone in the comments loves it, but I didn't. Their fourth and highly anticipated album from the Spanish black and death metal crew. Again, I love dark, angry, chaotic music like Adversarial, Abyssal, Malthusian, and Portal, but for whatever reason, this just wasn't really doing it for me. There are definitely sections that had me doing like the triggered Ethan Klein face, but as a whole, I didn't necessarily see myself going back to it. We also have Throne with That Who Sat Upon Him Was Death. Solid second album from this Michigan death metal crew, very reminiscent of Suffocation. They caught my attention with the battering opener Disentombed, and there are plenty of other great moments spread throughout, but again, the problem is I don't think that they always do what they do well enough to overcome the "this has always been done before" threshold for me personally. We also have A Day to Remember with Big Ol' Album Volume 1.
No weapon formed against me shall prosper. My will is stronger.
Generally nice to have these guys back, especially since it's been a while, and You're Welcome was hot trash. It's been a while since I disliked an album that much from a band that I generally enjoy so much, but I really wish they'd just go back to the perfect balance that they had of metalcore and pop punk. It seems like kind of an identity crisis right now. The experimentation doesn't always pan out, but there are some really solid tracks here, and I think it's a step up. You can check out my tier list for these guys as well. We also have Alien Weaponry with Terra. I see some going gaga over this band, but I wasn't thrilled about the last release, and I'm not exactly stoked about this one either. Some cool stuff going on here with the vocals and more tribal drumming, but overall I'm just getting a lesser fusion of like Sevendust and Soulfly without the same level of engagement I generally get with both of those bands. There's also Wombbath with Beyond the Abyss. Album 6 for this Swedish band that has been releasing records since 1993. I've always enjoyed them, but rarely loved them. It's just one of those bands that kind of gets lost in shuffle most days, but whenever the name comes up, I'm like, oh yeah, they have some good stuff. I should check out the new one. This album pretty much continues that trend. Solid, if rarely noteworthy, 90s style Swedish death metal. Then there's Bloodywood with New Delhi. I really want this band to succeed because I love what they're doing with this fusion of new metal with this more kind of like Indian aesthetic and like traditional music from that region. But a lot of it just comes off as like, even me, somebody who loves Limp Bizkit and stuff like that. A lot of this just comes off as supremely corny for me, especially the rap parts. Like I just don't care for those. And again, I love plenty of new metal that has rap in it and that is corny in its own right, but sometimes it's just a bridge too far for me.
Prove me wrong, kids. Prove me wrong.
Then we have Body Box with 3. The debut album from this Florida death metal, deathcore, hardcore fusion, and I have similar thoughts as with Crown Magnetar. Super heavy, fun listen, also love that crazy snare tone. It just gets kind of repetitive and forgettable despite being only 23 minutes. We also have Drutk with Shadowplay. 13 albums in for this Ukrainian black metal band, and honestly, I have never fully understood the appeal. I briefly got into Autumn Aurora, but since then, I feel kind of like I got everything that they have to offer from that early stuff. Very slow, plotting, and repetitive, and it's not just the fact that it's not really my style, as there are other bands that do a similar kind of thing and manage to maintain my attention, like Winterfelleth and Wolves in the Throne Room. And then there's Under Oath with The Place after this one. As I said in my tier list of their discography, the best words I can use to describe this album are confusing and whiplash. There are some parts that go really hard and just really get me in the right way, especially Generation No Surrender, but there's also a lot of experimentation that, while I respect it and find it thought-provoking, I don't always find it makes for as an enjoyable experience. Definitely better than Erase Me, but not as good as Voyeurist, though it is kind of growing on me with time, so we'll see.
No! Yes! I don't know!
Worst albums of the month. I have 2. The first one is Lordi with Limited Edition.
On winter mornings you can hear her steps. Up in the attic where her body was found later.
I just realized how awful that title is too. Ugh, it makes me want to throw up just saying it. Speaking of corny, yeah, these guys are the definition of that. I really can't stand the vocals. Don't get me wrong, I'm down for some classic 80s metal complete with cheesy upbeat synths, but this just ain't it. And then the other one is Memphis May Fire with Shapeshifter.
I think I cry if it's chaotic. I don't taste the pain when I stay neurotic.
Now, I remember vaguely enjoying this metalcore band back when Challenger came out in 2012, but since then they have become one of the poster boys of octanecore, which is just not my jam. Some of the heavier moments on the singles had me intrigued, especially the title track, but ultimately the, again, cheesy, overly glossy energy of tracks like Chaotic and full-on Imagine Dragons core energy of others like Infection continue to turn me away. Major bummer. I was kind of hoping I would enjoy this one. I don't root for bands to fail. And they probably won't, because this style is vastly popular, but yeah, for me, I kind of thought it sucked.
No, sir, I don't like it.
All right, but my favorite metal album of the month, and this should go as no surprise to people who have like been paying attention to the channel and know my taste, because this is like, I would venture to say maybe my favorite band of present day, and that is Imperial Triumphant with Gold Star. One of my most anticipated releases of the year by far from this jazz-infused technical black metal, death metal trio now going for round 6. And fortunately, it once more is among their best with this surprisingly concise 38-minute runtime, challenging them to offer something a bit more accessible while still being as experimental as ever, delving into everything from Brazilian maracatu to African gnawa music. And then you've got Thomas Hake of Meshuggah returning to guest, as does new collaborator Dave Lombardo. Another utter masterpiece from one of my favorite bands putting out music today. Any album vying for a slot for my best album of the year is going to have to go trial by combat against this one at this point. All right, I'll check out this playlist for more of my favorite metal albums of the year so far. And also, again, check out Mad Mike's new video, because, man, he does great work. Much better than anything I do here. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.